Tuatahi, he mihi tēnei ki te mana whenua no ngā rā o mua ko Ngāti Ira rangitāne kahanganu. Kātahi ka hara mai konei te ati awa Ngāti Toa Rangatira. Kia koutou, ko tai mai no ngā haue whā, no ngā tōpito o te ao, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I te taha o tōku māma he uri ahau no Ngāti Mahanga, no Ngai Tā Manuhiri me Ngāti Kahunganu. I te taha o tōku pāpā he uri ahau no Hokianga Whakapau Karakia, ara no te rarawa kaiwhare tangata me ngā puhi nui tonu. Tēnā koutou. I'm Kaye-Maree. It's really nice to see you all. And today I have the privilege of contributing my thoughts around how we are working towards healing our people and our planet. So I've got some disclaimers to state before I start. First one is, if by chance we have a technical issue, I'll just roll with it, if that's okay. So I'll try my best to roll with it. I've got this awesome new technology that I'm using, which is pretty new. So I've got an awesome new friend back there that will help me out. So just seek your patience. The second thing is that this kōrero is really a range of musings of mine that I've developed over a period of time. So I will pose questions. And my hope is that we can dive deeper later on this afternoon when we have our one-to-one session. So we may or may not garner any answers right now, but that's not really the purpose of today. My hope is to leave you with more questions, let them sit with you for a bit, and then we'll talk about it a bit further. Is that okay? Ka pai. Awesome. All right. So some of the things that I'm going to cover today is I'm going to share a little bit about myself and my journey. I'm going to talk about wellness and unwellness from my own personal perspective and my experience, as well as some of the work that I've been involved in. Then I'm going to provide my own wahine Māori opinion. And that's important because I will acknowledge the many wisdom keepers that have contributed to my thinking. But this is merely my own opinion. And again, you may agree or disagree, and that is also kei te pai. My plan then is to see how might we apply some of these learnings to the real world, in particular how you might utilise it as practitioners and as change makers, and then I'll leave you with a wero, a challenge for you to all take away with you. Again, as Matt said today, is what will this mean for tomorrow? How might we utilise this information for tomorrow? And it's quite amazing that here we are, starting off this journey with the Edmund Hillary Fellowship and Aotearoa being considered an incubation nation, and I completely agree with that because we are in an amazing place to create change. If we test it here, prototype it here, it can have a major impact on the world. Cool. So just a quick question before I start. Hands up, please, who has come from not these shores, who've come from overseas? Awesome. Ka pai, welcome. Please keep your hands up if you are aware or connected of the Indigenous history of your country. Cool, awesome. Just to connect with that, okay. For those from Aotearoa, so if you put your hands down, please put your hands up. Oh, stunning, ka pai. Now we've just come off Waitangi Day, So I really would like to ask you, how many of you feel relatively confident about Aotearoa's history? Yeah, cool. And how many of you know, those who've still got your hands up, have an understanding of the Declaration of Independence and Declaration of Independence? Ka pai. And then moving it forward a little bit more, who feels relatively comfortable around the structure of Te Ao Māori in regards to how Māori societies look, feel, and are? Okay, stunning, awesome. So those that have got their hands up, please, I'm not the holder, I'm not the oracle of all information, so that's awesome because we've got some other supporters in the room. So if you've got some questions, maybe you can pose it to our friends as well. I may not necessarily cover any of those things, but it helps me get a sense of who's who in the room as well. So, big mihi to the organisers, because it was great for me. I actually took time to look at all of you who are here. I had a look at all the interests that you have, and I thought about how do I bring this kōrero to connect with and resonate with you, because you've got some burning questions that you want to have answered or build relationships around. But I've got some specific interests. I'm very interested in the mind, and you'll hear why. I'm interested in whanau ora, which is about whanau well-being in all facets. I'm passionate about permaculture, and it was wonderful to see Gary Williams' photo up, because he's a tohunga in his space around water and kai and food. I'm very passionate about decolonisation, and as Horomona introduced me before, we met at a time when it was my very first time to go to Waitangi. And that experience was a deeply moving, visceral experience for me on a range of different levels. And it was awesome that Horomona and I, in our travels back to Tāmaki Makaurau, had a good conversation to say, well, how do we channel that anger? How do we utilise this riri that is present in that space and use it for transformative change? And I want to mihi to you, my bro, because at that point we weren't fully in our power zone, or the reo, and now he is a practitioner, a kaiako, a teacher, and also a taonga puoro tohunga, or a practitioner of his art form. And again, that's, to me, a way that he was able to channel that energy into something very creative and also transformative on a very intimate and also global level. So, kia ora, my bro. Social entrepreneurship is really important to me because, again, when you look at business and the faulty system that it sits on, how might we utilise elements of business that work as well as those that are doing social good? But my particular bend is towards Indigenous social entrepreneurship, because how might we utilise the wisdom and traditions of our people, mix that with business, so that we can ensure that we are creating opportunities, but also are mindful of what that means for future generations as well. I'm about Indigenous emancipation on all levels, democracy and human development. I thought about democracy because actually it's about holocracy, which is all about, how do we reorganise ourselves in a way that works and is beneficial and distributes power. That's me. Yeah, I'm the baby. That's Father Haring. My mother there is on the left. Her name is Kahutaroa Pohatu, and that's my father who recently passed away. That's Mita Dunn, my elder brother Mita Dunn Jr. But I was born Teresa Jane Dunn. And those two women beside my mother is Teresa and Jane. And unfortunately, my mother passed away when I was 6 months of age. And there's a process in Te Ao Māori called whāngai. And that's when you're gifted to somebody else. It's actually quite an honour, quite a privilege. And I was gifted to my birth mother's sister. Unfortunately, she didn't like Teresa and she didn't like Jane, so she just changed my name to Kaye-Maree. She didn't do it legally. I still have troubles and dramas with that because I'm still legally Teresa Jane Dunn. But that picture reminds me of some of the interesting dynamics of being Māori and born in 1980 with this very heavy Catholic resonance around me. And I am, yes, not very Catholic at all. This is my mother that raised me and my stepfather. My mum is a stay-at-home mum. Growing up, I was quite ashamed of that fact. I thought, God, my mum was heaps older than all my other friends' parents, mothers, but she spent time to raise me, and both of my parents were very dedicated to me getting a good education. They felt the world is your oyster, Kaye-Maree. My father, who raised me as well, was a freezing worker and a unionist. And what I learnt from my father was a range of things. He tended not to talk very much, but when he drank, he did. But alcohol was a major factor in my upbringing. I was around it a lot. My parents looked after me well. I never went without anything, but alcohol and the abuse of alcohol was definitely part of my upbringing, my programming. I am the youngest of 11. On my mother's side, she had 11 children, and I also have 3 brothers on my father's side as well. Again, this is another layer that makes me who I am. I love my whanau. So, within my whanau, our perspective might be that my parents, they both died. All of my parents actually are now passed on. They've all died of preventable diseases. 2 of my brothers have been incarcerated. 2 are long-term unemployed. 3 have been victims of sexual abuse. 1 has been diagnosed with a significant mental illness, including a 7-year cycle of long-term hospitalisation. We have been impacted by the urban drift or intentional urban relocation, depending on how you look at it. And all of us have been subjected in one way or another to violence, whether or not it's personal, domestic, and we definitely have been influenced and impacted by alcohol. There are 8 mokopuna and there is 1 grand mokopuna. Yep. That's our perspective. Or the other one is actually, despite all of that, we have 5 loving parents. Our whānau are actually still intact, as in we still talk to each other. 2 of us are tertiary trained, 3 of us are self-employed, and we are all on a journey of reconnection and reclamation. Yeah? So we could either be broken or not. It depends on the frame that we might apply to ourselves. There are some major challenges that are affecting Māori people today. Domestic violence, violent offences, low outcomes, socio-economic, etc., you get the picture, yeah? Incarceration, suicide, all of those are realities that many of our people are facing today. But I want to make it very clear that I am not a statistic, yeah? I'm not a statistic. I am a complicated person. I am a mother, I'm a woman, I am a tragic gardener, as I put there. I'm a mother, I'm a mokopuna, and I'm an aspiring poet, yeah? So there are many elements that make me who I am. But with the programming that I had received as a child, I was very restless with that. And I had this burning question of why. Why is this a reality for so many of the people that I am intimately connected with? So again, there are some more strategic issues and matters that we're facing. There's some structural stuff, there's external factors, there's historical elements, there's psychological challenges that we're facing, there's spiritual issues that we are contending with, social issues, and right at the heart of it is our whānau, our families as well. This is universal, I'm certain. We all have these challenges on a day-to-day. But there's this other piece as well which says, hey, it's not okay to be Māori in Aotearoa. And so growing up, if that's the message, then that's who you may become. So some consider that we get special treatment, yet there are all these challenges that we have had to survive, literally. We're only 3 generations in, we're still a very young country, but these are real challenges. And again, on the left side, we've got these kupu rangatira, about whānau, about iwi, rangatiratanga, which is all around the beautiful things that make us who we are. And then on the other side is this other picture, this other part of the binary which says, 1, you are beautiful, you are amazing, you are descend from atua, from gods. And on the other hand, it says, you are nothing but shit on the bottom of my shoe and you don't deserve anything here. Yet we once had full dominion over this entire country. We completely had full dominion over all resources, all lands. We had our language, we had our people. It wasn't perfect, but we still had that power base. And then again, you have some of the challenges that we're facing as Māori as well. with the proliferation of gangs, which again are new whanau, new families. Again, universal, so again, not just here, but a why keeps burning for me. And Horomona indicated one of our karanga whaia, Dame Whina Cooper, who led the 1975 Land March with Te Matakite. And again, that was about reawakening us to another reality here in Aotearoa, because we were pretty good, New Zealanders, we all get on, everyone's all happy, we're all one family. And then they say, hey look, who are these Maoris getting up and down about some of these challenges that they're facing? What's that about? That was echoed again by Whaia Eva when she said, actually no, that's our land and we have absolute right to it and we want to actually have a good conversation about it, and and they did. And again at not Pākai Tore, Aroha Mai, in Ōrākei, in Bastion Point, same thing actually. People were starting to awaken to the fact that we have a place here in Aotearoa. And Pākai Tore, one of the most interesting land occupations in my time, because that was a time for me when I was still at school and still feeling quite ashamed to be Māori at that time, and seeing this through the media eyes, not my own, and go, what are those Maori activists doing? Why are they marching and protesting? They're a shame to our people. So it was one of those experiences. But this video really talks about racism. I think this is really good, so we'll just quickly play it. It's 2 minutes.
The West was built on racism. It's time we faced that. In schools and at universities, we are sold a lie. It is the lie that the three great revolutions of science, industry, and politics are solely responsible for the advancement of the West. But in truth, none of this so-called progress happens without the genocide in the Americas, the barbaric slavery of African people, and the colonization of most of the world by European powers. The dead white men we are trained to revere created the knowledge that justified this conquest and murder. But the narrow, Eurocentric parade of dead white men as the center of knowledge is finally being challenged in our institutions. And this is not a battle about inclusion or diversity. It is not a debate that is simply academic. The knowledge that the establishment is so quick to defend produced the racism that has shaped the unjust world that we live in today. Think about this. Why did the founding fathers of America see no contradiction in declaring that all men are created equal, whilst many of them were slave owners? It's because race was created as a scientific reality, designed to maintain a hierarchy. The enlightened white European sits at the top, whilst the savage black African is at the bottom. The uncomfortable truth is that the world has been created in the founding fathers' image of white supremacy. In the West, we panic about childhood obesity, whilst in the global South, a child dies every 10 seconds because of poor access to food. The myth of an enlightened Europe spreading truth and progress across the world is so powerful and attractive because it helps us to sleep at night. But global inequality is not an accident. It is by design. It provides the cheap labor and materials that mean we can afford so much for so little. The world can only ever be as equal as the knowledge it is built upon. The battle to decolonize education is the first step in shaking us out of our progressive delusions and creating the world anew.
Now, the reason why I shared that was for two reasons, not just the shock factor. But actually, when we talk about sacred economies and the impact that the economic system has on the world, we also need to think about race. We also need to think about privilege as well. And as we are sitting in this beautiful dome, this isn't about getting caught up in that process, but it's actually to be mindful of the role that racism has and privilege has for all of us, and how we can be mindful of that, but also help transform that. So if we're thinking about world transformation, it doesn't go without us considering these elements as well. And so why does decolonising knowledge matter is because, again, the paradigm that we're sitting in may not necessarily just come from one viewpoint. How might we be very open and inclusive to various viewpoints? Why do we think we should think about these things? And also, does race have anything to do with it? And again, it may have felt a bit awkward. I make no apologies about that, but I do think it's important for us to sit and consider that as well. This was the constabulary that was sent out to quell Māori dissension, but this is the heart of our police force today. Their sole purpose was to ensure that Māori would do what they were told, and if not, they were put into jail and or sent down to different places to rot, basically. And I think it's important because if we look at system change, then we have to look quite deeply at, well, what is the systems that prop up this very nation as well? And I like Krishnamurti because, again, he's pretty cool because the journey is really about self, yeah? And are we prepared to look deeply into ourselves as well? Yeah, so I'm weary that we are being stuck in the binary, that we romanticise our past, and that's Māori included. You know, we like to think, oh gosh, you know, our tupuna was so massive, and they were, but they were pretty mean too. There was much brutality, much violence, alongside the fact that they were amazing in what they did. So I'm mindful that we're not romanticising our past, and I'm also very wary about misplaced guilt. It has no purpose. It serves no purpose, and so just for us to think about as well, how do we shake that? And that's about, again, our relationship with ourselves. A brief whakatauki, which in its essence is about knowledge. And you can only attain knowledge through knowing yourself and through learning by doing. So healing, as I wrap up, some of the aspects, and again we can talk about this in the afternoon workshop, is around family well-being and really getting to the heart of having brave conversations as family. One of the key aspects that I tend to use as a practitioner and a change maker in my worlds is whanaungatanga. So I'm not interested in what you do. We tend to not to be interested in what you do. We are interested in who you are and where you come from. Yeah. Whakapapa is a major part of that. So where do we come from? And we are all connected in this major ecosystem of planet Earth, but there is a whakapapa to everything. So how do we connect with whakapapa in our work and in our practice? Wairuatanga, so again acknowledging the sacred, the spiritual part of ourselves. How do we bring that into our awareness? Henengaro, our psychological well-being. How are we managing that? How are we looking after ourselves in our minds? Our physical well-being, our taha tinana, how are we looking after our bodies? Maori, the energy that exists within all of us, how are we managing that? How are we looking after it and acknowledging it in all that we do? Your mana, your power, how do we utilise that, empower it, make it work? Ha a kuima a koroma, so just a quick mihi to Dr. Rose Pere in the te wheke model, because this is all part of the te wheke model, but acknowledging our tupuna, our elders. And then finally, whatu manawa, which is around our emotional well-being. So how are we managing and utilising our emotions effectively as well? So there was a bit more to my presentation, but I just wanted to wrap up with just some final thoughts around how does this apply to you? Yeah. And basically, those thoughts that I shared with you previously is how might we unleash and acknowledge the wisdoms that are already here? And how do you use that? How do you unlock that? That actually, Indigenous knowledge, there is at the heart of it innovation, because we are a surviving people. So there is great innovation there and some great possibilities for partnerships. How do we give guidance? So how might you give your gifts and skills to Indigenous or marginalised communities, and how actually do you do that? The observation that has taken place over time through practice is very is valuable in Indigenous people. So how might you use that alongside technology? That the community themselves are the solution holders, and in fact, if we embrace these communities, that is where the tipping point of change. So, if you were to work directly with communities that are facing the most difficult hardship, and if you can get some rungs on the board there, then that is your tipping point. If you can get some change there, if you can invest there, if you can put your energies there, and it works, then it's easy to replicate anywhere. And I'm saying, hey, Aotearoa is an incubation nation. This is a kohanga, a nest for all of this opportunity. How can we partner? How can you bring your gifts and skills to our people? Nō reire, hoa mā. That's time. Thank you very much.